Pre-flop play and hand selection in Pot Limit Omaha is incredibly important, but getting it right is much harder than it is in No Limit Hold'em because so many 4-card Omaha hands look like they are playable. But in fact, you don't want to play more than 30% of the total hands that are dealt to you. The reason you have to be so careful is because when you play marginal hands pre-flop in Pot Limit Omaha, you will make lots of marginal hands post-flop, and that will lead to you bleeding money. In No Limit Hold'em, there are 169 different starting hands, and they are easy to evaluate. For example, it's not hard to see that Queen 2 offsuit is not a good hand in Hold'em. But in Omaha, there are over 10,000 starting hands, so instead of knowing what specific hands are good, we have to look for specific qualities in the hands we play and learn how to spot the good ones. This video will help you do that. One of the cardinal rules of Omaha is that you only draw to the nuts after the flop. So we must keep that in mind when we are deciding whether or not to play a hand before the flop, and only play hands that can actually make the nuts. An Omaha hand becomes much more powerful when you have 4 cards working together instead of 3. For example, the difference between 9-8-7-6 double suited and 9-8-7-2 single suited is tremendous. Note that the 2 of diamond does nothing for the second hand. This is a 3-card hand and automatically a big dog to an opponent with a hand where all 4 cards are working together. A 3-card Omaha hand really only has 3 2-card hands, but a 4-card Omaha hand has 6 2-card hands. So looking at it this way, you are doubling the value of your hand by making sure that you have 4 cards working together instead of 3. Always be suited. You always want to have at least 2 cards of the same suit in your hand. This is called being single suited. Even better is when you are double suited, and you have 2 cards of one suit and 2 cards of another. While we really only aim to make the nut flush, the ability to make any flush does help us, because it can function as a backup plan. Having flush cards also protects us if someone else has the nut flush draw, because then we are blocking 2 of his flush outs, because we have 2 of the cards that he needs to make his flush. You need your hand to be able to make the nuts in more than one way. The nuts can be made in a variety of ways, such as straights, nut flushes, and top full houses. But just one possibility is not enough, because it won't translate into a strong hand often enough post-flop. The reason is that sets, straights, and flushes are all vulnerable and are never a lock hand. Having more than one way to win is therefore very important. For example, Queen 4-8 unsuited is not a good hand. Neither is Ace 5-8 Queen single suited with the Ace and the 5 suited. These hands only have one way to make the nuts, and both the top set of queens and the nut flush are hands that can still be outdrawn. Compare these hands to Ace 7-8-9 double suited, or Ace 7-8 double suited. These hands both have multiple ways to make the nuts and are considered very strong hands in Omaha. Now let's look at the different types of starting hands, beginning with rundown hands. Rundown hands are hands where all 4 cards are very connected. These hands derive their strength from making strong wraparound straight draws. This is a straight draw with many more outs than a normal open-ended straight draw. For example, 6-7-8-9 on a 5-4 ace flop. Any 3, 6, 7, or 8 will make us a straight. Usually only one gap in a 4-card rundown hand is acceptable. 2 or more gaps and it's not worth playing. Although it is okay if the single gap is a 2-card gap. For example, Queen Jack 8-9 and Queen Jack 8-7 are both playable hands. The gap location matters. It's much better that the gap be at the bottom or in the middle instead at the top of the 4 cards. For example, 9-8-7-5 is a much better hand than 9-7-6-5. The reason is because having more overcards with your straight draw means that more of your straights that you can make will be nut straights. So for example, let's look at 9-7-6-5 when you flop a wraparound draw on a flop of 8-7-2. Any 10, 9, 6, or 5 will make you a straight. However, none of these will be the nut straight. There will always be a better possible straight. Another example would be 9-7-6-5 again on a 10-8-5 board. Here, any Jack, 9, 7, or 6 will make us a straight. But only the 6 will make us the nuts. Now if we are up against a hand like Queen Jack 9-8, we are in big trouble because a lot of cards will make us a straight, but will make our opponent a much better straight. Remember, we only want to play hands that can make the nuts, So it's critical to understand how to value some of these rundown hands in Omaha. Lastly, like we talked about earlier, we only want to play hands that can win in more than one way. So any rundown hand you want to play must have at least one flush draw. Double suited rundowns are some of the most powerful hands in PLO. Not only can they flop big straight draws, but when they flop a wraparound draw and have one or two flush draws as backups, they become very valuable and are hands you'll want to put your whole stack behind. You can also re-raise these hands pre-flop along with your ace-ace hand. Paired rundown hands can make sets, straights, and flushes. While they cannot make straight draws that are as strong as a 4-card rundown, their ability to make a set and a full house gives them additional value. These hands are very versatile and are definitely worth playing. Suited ace rundowns. These are 3-card rundown hands that also have a suited ace with them. Like the paired rundowns, they can't make straight draws as good as the 4 cards, but the suited ace gives us the nut flush draw instead of a weaker flush draw. This often will mean we can play the hand much more aggressively post-flop when we flop one or both of our draws. Remember, in Omaha our goal is to make the nuts, and these hands have a couple good ways to do that. Suited high cards. Having a suited ace in a hand automatically strengthens its value, since the nut flush draw adds a lot of power to any Omaha hand, and making the nut flush can also be very profitable. However, remember that only having the nut flush draw is not enough to make the hand playable. It needs either a pocket pair, 7s or higher, or connected straight cards to go with it. We need more than one way to win. 4 cards 9 or higher with 1 or 2 suits is another strong starting hand. These hands can not only make the top straight, but they can also make strong top 2 pair hands, often with a small straight draw or flush draw to go with it. Big pairs in Omaha are completely different than in Hold'em. They are much weaker and do not hold up nearly as often. So it's important to understand that even though we may have Queen Queen 2-3 and the board is 10 high, this is not a hand we want to get all in with. A hand like Queen Queen XX or Jack Jack XX is usually only good when we flop top set. Sets also do not have the strength that they do in Hold'em. Top set is not even the nuts on every flop. For example, when the board is 9 Jack Queen, 8-10 and King 10 make straights. In fact, top set can be an underdog to an opponent who has a big straight draw with a flush draw. So because the overpair is often worthless, and the set is not super strong either, almost always hands like 10-10 XX and Jack Jack XX, and even Queen Queen XX, with unconnected and unsuited sidecards, should be thrown away pre-flop. Aces are a special case in Omaha. They can be very powerful when they are something like ace-ace, 8-9 double suited, because then you have 2 nut flush draws and 2 connected sidecards. They can also be very weak, like when you have a hand like ace-ace, 8-3 unsuited. The better aces should be played fast pre-flop by re-raising, but the bad ones can be played just for a call. The reason for this is that one pair is rarely a winning hand in Omaha, so we have to be careful not to give someone our stack just because we have a pair of aces. Suitedness adds a lot of value to aces and kings. Flopping a flush draw with these hands gives you a hand that you can be comfortable getting all in with after the flop. Being double suited gives you a much better chance of flopping a flush draw. As a result, it's a much better starting hand than a single suited big pair. Small pairs can be disastrous in PLO because flopping bottom set usually results in you either winning a small pot or losing a huge pot. Sets are much easier to make in PLO than in Hold'em, and as we talked about before, they don't hold up as well. So you want to avoid playing hands with pairs, 2s through 6s. So these are the qualities to look for when deciding to play a hand in Omaha. Go log into your Carbon Poker account and try them out. And remember that playing better hands than your opponents will help ensure that you always have an edge on them. This is Hunter Vic with DragTheBar.com. Thanks for watching and good luck at the tables.